Okay, guys, so I wanted to talk about state change, all right? And how important it is for you to manifest SPs and manifest money. So what better example for me to use than the most popular entertainment business right now, the UFC. Now, I know I have a lot of women on this channel and they're probably saying, oh, let me just cancel out and do my nails. But I'm telling you, whether you watch fighting or not, this is going to really explain to you what I mean by, or when I say that state change and the state that you're in is extremely crucial to your results, okay? So I'm just gonna put you in perspective, okay? For the guys who watch UFC, I don't have to explain so much, but for the ones who don't know, UFC is obviously a mixed martial arts sport, okay? The most popular combat sport right now. And in that sport, there's obviously like a top 10, okay? And the top 10 usually consists of fighters that are undefeated. They never lost in their whole career. Some of these people have been fighting for over 20 years, right? And we had a lot of fighters who were either undefeated or haven't lost in years. And in the UFC, by the way, even if you have a couple of losses, if you haven't lost since you were like a kid, which your record, by the way, stays with you even when you were starting out as a teenager, by the way. So they cut you a lot of slack in the UFC when you have a loss, okay? So in the top 10 since maybe 2025 of the fall of 2025 and all the way until now, we've had about like 4 huge, or really 5 huge upsets in the victories, okay? So I'm just gonna list the names of the guys. We've had fighters who were in the top 10 lose their belt shockingly, and not only shockingly, but to fighters that we didn't expect for them to lose to, okay? That's the crucial part, okay? So we had Merab Dvalishvili, okay? We had Alexandre Pantoja. We had Khamzat Chimaev, and then we had my personal favorite fucking fighter, Ilia fucking Topuria, okay? All those guys that I mentioned were feared in the UFC. We're talking feared, okay? And ladies, I know you're probably like, oh my God, what is this? UFC, yeah, yucky, smack, you know, wrestling. But all you gotta know is it's the equivalent of like going to like a fashion show with your favorite supermodels, ladies, you know, and all of a sudden they get beat out by like an amateur. Like, that's how crazy it was almost. Even though it wasn't amateurs that beat these guys, in comparison, nobody really gave a lot of these guys a chance, right? So I'm even starting to wonder, is this shit scripted? Like, what the fuck, right? We have the number 1 guy fighting in a month, and if he loses, it's like, okay, now something's really going on. But you see, I believe that a lot of these fighters, they get so much money that they stop caring, right? Or I believe that a lot of these fighters, they get to the point where they don't take their opponents seriously because they're not used to, you know, having to have all this status and all this money, and so it just gets to their head, right? So when you are in the state of the guy who is not hungry anymore, you have money, you're not really a fighter at that point, right? You are just a fan. You are just a retired guy living life, right? And I know that sounds crazy, but most fighters, when they win a lot of money, most athletes, when they win a lot of money, it just gets to their head and they're focused more on the lifestyle of their freedom from poverty rather than focusing on what their actual sport requires of them, okay? Now, some don't do it just for the money, right? Some do it for legacy, some do it for the love of the game, right? But I believe that that's what is one of the many reasons why a lot of these guys lost. or it could simply be because there's something going on personally in their lives, right? But the reason why I brought this up is because I'm not saying that the other opponents that they faced were not worthy enough to beat them, but guys, like, to me, when you look at their opponents in comparison, they had so much more to lose. They had more riding on them. They had more motivation. When Justin Gaethje beat Ilia Topuria, okay? And by the way, ladies, again, just try to follow along, okay? I swear. Or if not, just look at my sexy face, okay? Whatever, all right? Just stay there. When Justin Gaethje beat Ilia Topuria, okay? Gaethje, you know, had all this confidence in the world, despite the fact that everybody knew that he stood a good chance of just being knocked out cold by this guy. But why did he have confidence? Because he knew that if he lost, it's not that embarrassing. But if Topuria lost, which he ended up doing, it was extremely embarrassing, right? Same thing with Sean Strickland with Khamzat Chimaev. Nobody expected him to lose. If he would have won just one round and then got demolished after that, they would have been like, whoa, hey, at least he had one good round, right? Because with his thing, they were like, dude, if he could just keep it on the feet, because Khamzat Chimaev was a wrestler, okay, ladies, okay? So, that, you know, if you like man-on-man contact, you know, you can just think of this for a second. Two men wrestling, okay? Khamzat Chimaev was the best at taking men down no matter their size and keeping them there and just, you know, pressuring them, right? No homo, right? Well, he could not take, he took Sean Strickland down, but Sean Strickland was able to keep it on the feet, and Khamzat Chimaev just was not able to take him down that much anymore, right? It looked like he gassed out from trying to keep him down, where all his other opponents, they would never get back up, right? Well, with Sean Strickland, again, he had nothing to lose, because if he loses, everybody expected him to, but if he wins, he had everything to gain. Khamzat Chimaev, he better fucking not lose to Sean Strickland, because this guy fucking lost to a guy that Khamzat Chimaev dominated to. So it just didn't make sense. The MMA math didn't equate to this, right? So what am I getting at, guys? When you look at the opponents that beat these legendary fighters that nobody thought they would ever lose, right? You see that they were so chill. They did not go into it afraid. They went into it like, you know what, I'm just happy to be here. They didn't give a fuck. And that's the way, here we go, ladies, you can stop looking at me now. That is the way that we have to be with our SP. That is the way we have to be with the money. We don't put such a huge emphasis on what if this happens, what if that happens. You just enjoy the ride, because I'm not saying that they didn't have any intimidation, but again, what were they afraid of? Like in the UFC, you lose, you don't get fired, you don't get released. You have to lose a lot of times before you lose your job in the UFC. Like there's men getting title shots on pay-per-view cards, ladies and gentlemen, that have lost last year. Okay, so you know, this whole idea, like, the UFC is very generous to their fighters. Well, maybe not, but I mean, if any of you guys y'all know where I'm going with this. But what I'm getting at, guys, is that when you go into a situation, no matter how scary it might seem, when you just go in it with this idea of I don't give a fuck, you know, there's so much more space mentally, clarity. You're more sharp, right? And this is why I say to not always be doing affirmations about your SP. This is why I say don't always make all the imaginal acts about the money, okay? Because you're putting it on a pedestal, okay? I believe that you should only do it every now and then, right? But when you're just constantly like, oh, I got to do my SAT session tonight about SP if I want to make sure that I get them in a week. What the fuck, okay? Stop putting them on the pedestal, okay? Because if you were with your SP right now, you wouldn't be thinking about them all the time, okay? There wouldn't be all this energy of I need them right now, okay? I need to do this affirmation right now. I need to do this technique right now. Am I doing this right, okay? I've always said only do the fucking technique if it feels natural, if you feel like doing it. If you are exhausted by it, you're like, oh, man, I mean, you know, am I doing it right? Then don't do it at all, okay? because I want you to understand that the most powerful state to be in is not the state of the wish fulfilled, but it's the state of not giving a fuck, because I'm going to let you in on a little secret. They're the same fucking thing. Okay? So I just wanted to, you know, get that through to you guys. I could have made this a more in-depth analogy video, but it was just on my mind. But really, if you ladies or gentlemen, really mostly gentlemen, well, you know, ladies, come on. What are you, I mean, let's stop with the, you know, Desperate Housewives or whatever you guys watch. Okay, ladies, all right, get into the UFC. All right, come on. What are you waiting for? All right. But in all seriousness, like, look at the opponents of the fighters that I mentioned. If you need me to mention them again, you know, you know, my boy who requested this video, he'll list them down below. Okay, watch the press conferences leading up to those fights, or even go on YouTube and see people talking about it. They're gonna say of what this opponent did right, and a lot of the UFC analysis, they always talk about aura, right, which is basically the same thing as state, right? And UFC is really full of different states. They're full of different characters. And really see the ones that are winning right now and look at their state. And try to emulate that energy, but into your SP stuff, into your money stuff. And you're going to see that they're just literally, they're just living life. They don't give a fuck. They're not always like, oh, do I got to do this? I got to do that. So we really need to rip a page out of their book. Okay? So if you want to go more in depth in your situation, the links are down below, and join the channel membership, guys, because you get discounts to consultations and also access to the next couple of months of videos. All right. I love y'all. I'll see you in the next one.